Welcome to the Lala's Astrology channel. My name is Dabney, and I have a new astrologer to introduce on this channel, but many of you, I'm sure, are already familiar with Karin. She's with Little Blue Lotus Astrology. You can find her on YouTube, or littlebluelotus.org is her website, and she's often a frequent guest on Susan Lynn's channel. So I know that Susan, shout out to Susan from Karin and I. Susan said, you have to have Karin on. And I was like, why haven't I? You're right. So Susan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm real excited to be here today.
Yeah,
In
I'm always
fact, you
excited.
beat me. I was going to reach out to you because a mutual friend of ours, Alan Johnson, who's probably going to be watching this, said, why don't you get a hold of Dabney and see if you can have her on your channel or she can have you on your channel. And like a few days later, I got your email.
Oh my gosh, it lists so many synchronicities. So
Yeah.
if you are watching, what we do on this channel is we kind of look at the cosmos and we try to figure out the planetary energy. We try to help make sense of things down here on Earth so we can have a more peace-filled and conscious life. Karin and I both work a lot with our clients on life purpose. What am I here for? Am I fulfilling my destiny? It's been a time, I think people are starting to come out of the fog, but I think especially the past few years, there's been this sense of like overwhelm and confusion. And so we were sort of riffing on the fact that we both have different teachers and we both do similar sort of astrology with finding life purpose, but we come about it from two different methodologies. So I'm an evolutionary astrologer, but Karin comes from the traditional background, but then has also been trained by a disciple of Yogananda. And so she does some past life work as well. So do you want to kind of start us off, Karin, just by talking about how you approach a chart and what are some of the things that you're looking for when you meet with a client?
Okay. Well, and this is probably really similar to what you do. When you first see the chart and you look at what's jumping out at you, is there a particular configuration in the chart that's jumping out at you? And then that seems to be like the hook that all these other things hang from. If somebody has a particular thing that has to do with family issues, then everything else that I find sort of fits into that family issue that they're here for the family. It's very difficult. It took a lot of courage to reincarnate with these difficult aspects, but the way I like to explain it to my clients when they have a difficult chart is that it did take a lot of courage. And probably you were just like, I'm tired of dealing with the same issues lifetime after lifetime. Let's just get it done. I don't care how hard it is. I know you guys are going to be with me, helping me, so let's just do it. And when I say that, often people they relax. They're like, "Oh, so this isn't being done to me. This is something that I decided to charge for and try to wipe the slate clean so that it gives them a feeling of more empowerment." And I think that's one of the big points, one of the big focuses that you and I probably both have when we're looking at a chart is how can I empower this person? They've had a really tough time, maybe for their whole life, maybe for a few years, but they're feeling beaten up, they're feeling lost, they're feeling confused. What can I find that can say, hey, and then it resonates with them? See, it always has to resonate. And then they're like, okay, they've kind of girded their loins and they're ready to move forward and keep going. But I look at the bottom of the chart and differently probably than a lot of people do. I look at the bottom of the chart and say, well, this is where they're coming from. They're coming from a family tribe of, uh, like the United States chart has Aries at the bottom of the chart. Well, we certainly were Aries like when we came here to this country and to this continent, warlike and militaristic and bloodthirsty. These are all the low Aries type stuff. But, if I look at a person's chart and I see Aries at the bottom, that means they've got Libra at the top. And what they're moving toward in this lifetime is they're moving toward balance and beauty and compromise and being able to see all sides and peace. Libra is about peace. Aries is often about war. So that's one of the things I use. Of course, I use the nodes. The nodes are very, very important. And I do a lot of focus on Chiron too.
So we actually have a lot in common then.
Okay.
Because so this is kind of our first time talking about how we approach a chart, but I approach things very similarly. I do want to know what someone's childhood was like. And I often find that, especially people that come and get astrology readings, they are conscious enough to, or at least the ones that want to come to me,
Hmm.
my people, they're conscious enough to have reflected on what their upbringing, for better or for worse, had meant to them.
Right.
And ultimately, the seeds of a lifetime, I believe, as you do, that you come into this world as a choice. And it's very I think it's very confusing for some people to hear that, because, well, why would I choose a lifetime where there was this level of trauma? But
Right.
it can also be incredibly empowering to say that we recreate our karma sometimes so we can move past it.
Right.
And so you see karmic patterns in a chart that may reflect either ancestral lineage
Hmm.
or potentially past life karma. It depends on the person's belief. And I have my own beliefs, but that's what they are, they're beliefs. And so I don't push that on anybody. Uh,
Right.
but you can kind of see where, we have now epigenetic DNA where it's like trauma throughout lineages and throughout ancestral past shows up in our lives today. And so I also look at the family of origin, which can be seen at the bottom of the chart, the fourth house. I
Hmm.
have been really getting into Chiron quite a bit because I do believe it's the story that we tell ourselves,
Yes.
that
Yes.
once we can move past this story, and then, the nodes obviously play a large role.
Hmm.
And I look a lot at Pluto in transit. Um,
Okay, sure.
so do you want to actually look at, we have two charts we are going to look at that we thought might be fun for people in this community, since we are pretty politically minded here. And I
Mhm.
know Karin is too. So do you want to look at AOC, or do you want to look at the US chart first?
Sure. Sure, we can look at AOC first.
All right. So we're going to
Love
look
her.
at,
Love
at
her.
AOC's chart. Let me pull that up here really quickly.
Another thing I want to mention quickly about when we look at a person's chart, and you probably do this as well, because we look at the chart, and the chart is our karma. And so sometimes when people come to me and they say, well, I've had a string of bad marriages, or I've had a string of bad relationships, or I'm trying to get pregnant and I can't get pregnant. And you see that the karma in the chart is that they're burning through karma in relationships. They're finishing up certain pieces of karma in the life. And so if you look at marriages that didn't work out, or relationships that didn't work out, or pregnancies that didn't work out, sometimes it's just you're burning through that karma, you're finishing it up, and you're getting ready to move forward. So that gives you a context for saying, oh, okay, so I'm that relationship didn't work because I was just finishing that up, and now I'm over with that person, and and on, or I'm finishing this up, and now I'm open to the new. I've moved past it, and I'm never going to have to go back to that again. And that's usually a huge relief for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And also I just love what that astrology can give you a roadmap,
Hmm.
because oftentimes for me, karma is a merry-go-round. We sort of do our south node over and over and over again because it's just what we're
Yes.
good at. It's what we
Yes.
know. And so, just backing up a little bit, the south node is uh, in evolutionary astrology, it is the patterns of our life that we know really well. And oftentimes we look at it through kind of a negative lens, because what we're trying to do is, as you said, sort of burn through that karma, move past it. it has gifts in it, but it also may have been where you were hurt or crossed, or where things sort of fell apart for you in a past life or through ancestral lineage. And so, I believe that we kind of come in and jump off the cosmic diving board looking for a solution, as moving our soul forward. That's the evolutionary part. It's like it's a lifetime's work. We don't suddenly come in and by the age of 7 have mastered our karma. Like
My God, yeah.
incremental, and you move towards it. And I also use the example of like a rubber band, where like you can pull it forward, but sometimes it snaps back,
Yep.
especially in times of stress, or during a big Saturn or Pluto transit. Like, we go to
Mhm.
our default survival mechanisms.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so the North Node is where we're going. It's what our soul wants to do. So we tend to look at that in a more positive light. So when we talk about the North Node versus the South Node, if we're talking about different energies, know that maybe I'm going to be talking about the shadow of that sign.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that encompasses everything within that sign, because each sign
Exactly.
has good and bad to it.
Exactly. And it helps so much. I mean, the first time that one of my spiritual teachers explained my North Node in one sentence, and I was just gobsmacked. It was like, oh my God. Oh my, and I was in my 40s, late 40s. Just, and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do. And this is why I'm always in trouble when I do this. It's
Right.
never successful. You have the same kind of results. And so, getting to know that, getting to have somebody look at your chart and say, well, this is where you're headed. And let's talk about how that might feel for you. How does that work in your life? Can we find some examples to clarify that? And it's just, it, it's a turning point. It's just a turning point.
Yeah. Yeah. So if, as we go through a couple examples here, I know that Karen's available for readings. So if you are interested in getting a reading from her, I know Susan's had a reading from her. I would definitely suggest giving her, website, go on there, find all the contact information and details, and I'll link it below in the description as well.
Oh, thank you, Dabney. Thank you.
Yeah. So Karen, let's look at AOC. Let's kind of,
Okay.
I've looked at her before on this channel, but not through an evolutionary lens.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of, looking at her soul purpose. Why don't you take us through a little bit of your observations, and then I can jump in.
Okay. Well, one of the first things I noticed was that she's got the moon at the bottom in Aries and her sun and Mars and Mercury at the top. So she's coming from, I think she's got a Puerto Rican American background, so they're very fiery, passionate people. And but what we see as soon as she was elected was that she was building a coalition, which is what Libra does, which was at the top of her chart.
Mm.
Libra is building partnerships and coalitions and finding common goals and seeing all sides to the question. Um, but she's coming from the fiery, passionate Aries moon, which is her family, and so that passion is very contagious. So I saw that right away, and interestingly enough, the chart, the United States chart, has a Aries bottom of the chart and a midheaven in Libra. So I thought, okay, she's she's totally aligned with the higher purpose of the United States as well as her own higher purpose. It just lines up beautifully. I noticed that she's got a Sagittarius rising, and Sagittarius is the truth teller as well as the truth seeker. And they're natural born teachers, and we've seen that in her life since she's been elected as well. She's great at teaching people, explaining things to people in ways that gets them fired up and inspired, but also gets them to understand what's really going on. What's the truth of the matter? Um, Chiron in the seventh, next to that Jupiter, I'm not sure if she's had that Chiron in the seventh yet. We don't know a lot about her personal life, but maybe that's something that might fire in the future. I hope not. Um, you know, but it's in Cancer next to the Jupiter and in the seventh house of partnerships. That could be, you know, a spouse or a serious relationship that that causes a wound. I don't know. What do you think about that, Dabney?
You know, when I look at the Chiron, so here one quick caveat. AOC has made her birth chart public. So you know, we obviously have never met AOC. So this is kind of how you would do a chart for someone who is in the public domain. So I hate to speculate too much about
Okay.
certain things, but I would say when I see a Cancer Chiron in the seventh house, so the Cancer Chiron, potentially a wound around the mother and around nurturing. Something,
Okay.
something, you know, came along and maybe hurt her when she was younger, something around relationships. I'm not sure what her family background is, whether there was a divorce or if she was more aligned with her father, or just some sort of wound around compassion. She may
Mm-hmm.
have just been somebody who is incredibly giving and compassionate and sensitive and been shamed for that on some level. So we see
Mm-hmm.
that often with someone with Chiron in Cancer, but it's next to that Jupiter, which gives it um, kind of it gives it, it's not luck, but it enlarges it, right? And
Right.
so this is what I think we can't look at it in a vacuum, which you're not, you know.
Right.
So,
Well,
but
and it's also trying the Pluto in her chart. So there's that is Pluto, right? Yeah, that's Pluto. So it's something that, okay, it's a transformation. It's not as painful as it could be without the fact that it's trying. I'm thinking that, well, okay, that there's a deep level of growth from whatever the wound is. She learns a lot from it. She uses it. I think she would use the pain from the Chiron in her public life because of the Pluto in the 11th. Pluto is masses of people, and in the 11th house, I look at the 11th house as the gifts we give the culture, as well as the traditional interpretation of friends and associations and hopes and dreams. So I'm thinking, okay, so there's something that she does with this pain that to help heal others.
right, a champion for the underdog. Because
Yes,
Cancer is the mother, is the nurturer, is the protector of women and children. And so
yes.
as she heals that sort of wound, there is something where she's kind of been empowered to be the protector with that Jupiter there.
Hmm.
In the seventh house, you know, she is attractive, right? Like people are
Yeah.
attracted to her. You also see that with that Libra on the midheaven.
Hmm.
And you have Mercury, which is the planet of communication right there. So
Hmm.
she has a diplomatic way of communicating. She has an appealing way of communicating. There are
Hmm.
people that voted for Trump that also voted for her. And when she asked, why would you do that? They said, well, because you're real. You tell
Hmm.
it, you know, so she can relate to people who even vote against, you know, across party lines. So she has
Right.
this very diplomatic way of reaching out to people and reaching them. And I do believe all of that plays into her, to some degree, her past life stuff with the nodes. But when I also see that moon in the third house in Aries, you know, the third house is about communication as well. So
Hmm.
there's a lot here that says that she's a very strong communicator, but to your point, she's a warrior. And
Hmm.
again, we have the echo of the moon, someone who's a caretaker. So you know, her mission is the compassionate warrior, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
she has an articulate way and an appealing way, an attractive way, all that Libra
Hmm.
of kind of being out front and being a warrior without intimidating or scaring people.
Right.
You
And
know, a lot of people don't like her. She's a lightning rod, but
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's because of her strength. And
yeah.
Aries and Sagittarius, incredibly strong signs. And both Aries and Libra are cardinal signs too. So,
Mhm.
you know, and Cancer and Capricorn.
Mhm.
This chart is filled with cardinal signs.
All about action.
All
Yeah.
about action. She's not going to just sit back and let this time happen. She wants to make a difference in this lifetime. That's
Hmm.
important to her.
I do want to add with that moon in Aries at the bottom of the chart that when she was campaigning the first time, and I think she was putting her campaign information out in like 6 different languages.
Oh,
Who does
wow.
that? Because her district had so many different groups of different people. There were the Latins, there was the Arabs, there was all kind, 6 different languages, Chinese, Mandarin. And so I think the moon at the bottom of the chart in Aries is, I want to include all the people, everybody that's there. The moon wants to nurture, Aries wants to fight for those that can't fight for themselves. But at the bottom of the chart, she's including everyone. And I think, interestingly, since it falls right at the bottom of the US chart, which has to do with the indigenous people, I think that was a big focus for her. I think even she used the Puerto Rican flag and the Spanish flag, in some of her campaign rallies and things. I mean, she was very, very aware of who she was representing, and she didn't want to leave anyone out.
Yeah. So the other thing that we can talk about is the nodes. So I don't know if you want to kick us off or if you'd like me to, or either way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm trying to look at, I think yeah, go ahead. I want to
So
hear what
her
you say.
south node is in the sign of Leo,
Hmm.
in the eighth house. So again, we want to look at this through somewhat of a negative lens. And so what could this have mean? The eighth house can be a lot about power and money.
Hmm.
And Leo can be royalty. Leo can be just a very important person. So my guess is she's had lifetimes in leadership roles. She is somebody who is a natural born leader.
Hmm.
And in this eighth house, it's interesting because, you know, there is something here around the eighth house is sex, death, and taxes, right? So
Right.
something that is, potentially traumatic, could be, something that was dangerous, that could have occurred in a past life. And I look to the ruler of Leo, which
Hmm.
is the sun in Libra conjunct Mars in this 10th house. So again, we have the echo of somebody in a leadership position. So
Right.
if I was to really kind of create a story, and this is not, I'm not psychic like Susan, but if I was to create a story, it would be something around the fact that, here's this person in a position of power who really had access to money, who was seen as a very important person. And maybe she was a diplomat. She could have been somebody in the king's court or in,
Hmm.
doesn't have to be royalty. It could just be in politics, right? Somebody
Right.
who could have been potentially close to Joseph Stalin. I mean, who knows? And
Yeah, an advisor. Yeah,
right, an
counselor.
advisor, a counselor, that's what, and ultimately that Mars there kind of indicates that, in this prominent role, there was something, violent that took place. And so that to me says there is, she was witness, with this Libra. I don't think she had much to do with it, but, she may have been a victim, or she was tangential to the violence that took place at the hands of some, oligarch back in the day, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
someone in a position of power, the haves, not the have-nots. And so she may have, had some awareness but felt helpless at the same time to make a difference,
Hmm.
or had to play the game, couldn't be herself, couldn't be her authentic, true, didn't have her true voice.
Hmm.
And in this lifetime, I see that, she is here to be more Aquarian, take care of the masses, take care of the people, not just be self-centered, not just look out for one person's money, but to kind of be somebody who champions the distribution of resources.
Hmm.
And and how does she do that? So the ruler of this Aquarius is Uranus in Capricorn next to Saturn and Neptune. And so this all tells me is through government, through making changes, through being responsible, through having faith. So that's where her soul wants to go, is to be responsible, to have high integrity, to be a voice of the people, and to kind of rebalance that distribution of wealth, which is what she's out there doing with burning. So
Exactly.
that would be, kind of at least one read, especially knowing her biography.
Mhm.
Now, if this was just somebody I have no idea who their biography is, you could say, well, this person might have come from a situation of being much more just all about themselves, and they weren't paying attention to the diplomatic, but they were very diplomatic actually, and they were caught in a war, is what I would have
Mhm.
said. So
Right, yeah.
yeah, so
An
you riff
overthrow
on it a
or a
little
war
bit.
of some kind, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do see that what they want to do is they don't want to have drama. They want to get out of the drama. They want to get out
Mhm.
of the power struggles, whoever, that would be. And they want to, look for solutions that are fair for everybody, not just for the king.
Right, yeah. Aquarius is much more detached than Leo,
Right,
very
right.
much
So she's
so.
very passionate, but that's one of the places where she probably has to separate herself, is there might be a tendency to get wrapped up in the fact that she is a celebrity, right? And
Right.
she, that would be something she would have to let go of, is that power and that celebrity. That would be a cautionary tale for her.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, the Leo is, she may have been caught up in her own importance in this other life, or a number of other lifetimes, caught up in her own importance because she was probably really good at what she did.
Right.
And when you're really good at what you do, then you're on duty, you're on call. And most people, most humans tend to feel like, well, gee, the king wants me. The president wants me. The prime minister wants me. They need me. They're calling me in the middle of the night. So I must be important. So yeah, you're right. To,
Yeah.
to
So
be
that
more
would be a
detached.
cautionary tale. And I'm trying to see if there's anything squaring, but I don't think so. I don't think there's anything squaring that Leo. So um and also, sacrificing her personal life, that could be that
Mhm.
Cancer in the seventh as well, even though there's Jupiter there. I've done
Mhm.
readings for people with Jupiter in the seventh, and like, they're learning about relationships. They may attract people, but the intimacy that she may crave might be somewhat hidden from her because of her travel schedule and because of like her quote unquote importance. And
Right.
so, that doesn't allow her the ability to kind of get away from the drama, because, she is a lightning rod. Here's that
Mhm.
sun with the Mars right there. People attack her,
Yep.
right? Like people
Absolutely.
project, she is constantly under attack. People say how stupid she is, even though she has Mercury straight on the midheaven, which would not indicate a stupid person.
No, not by any means. No.
So, anything else you wanted to riff on this chart before I brought up the US
I
chart?
just think, to add to the thing that you just said about relationships, it's interesting because the Jupiter and the Chiron in the seventh is opposed all, that the stellium in the first in Capricorn, and Capricorn is very ambitious and hardworking, and Jupiter is in Cancer would be more of a homebody, and so the opposition there, which means the conflict between one person and another person, or one person and a group of people, is that she probably had in other lifetimes sacrificed her personal life, as you mentioned, a spousal relationship, family, for her responsibilities, which is Capricorn. And so that's something that she's trying to balance out in this lifetime as well.
Yeah, and that Capricorn Saturn in the first is a workaholic.
Yes, it's all about the work.
Yeah, so I mean, with the Neptune there, the work is on the behalf of the people,
Hmm.
and there is something kind of meaningful for her. But yeah, I imagine it's exhausting and it comes at a price for
It
sure.
comes at a price. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay.
Extraordinary person, though. Gosh, she's an extraordinary person.
She is. And I loved your observation about Pluto up here in Scorpio in the 11th. I think that's an important one for her as well. Okay, so now what's interesting is not only can you do this, and so this is just to give you a flavor of like how you would find a life purpose in a chart. And so it turns out that we have a very similar approach, even though we have very different schools that we come from of astrology. But uh, even a country can have a birth chart.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to pull up the birth chart of the United States because I know so many of us here are very actively watching what is happening in our country.
Wringing our hands.
Yes, with a degree of anxiety. Can you see it okay?
I can.
Okay, wonderful. So this is the signing of the Constitution, which is very commonly accepted chart for the United States. There are other
Mhm.
charts, but this one I do believe works very well. And to your point, she has a Sagittarius rising, just like
Mhm.
AOC. But we have this 1 degree down here in Aries.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the US Sibley chart?
Well, I agree with you. I think this is the true chart, although there are like 3 or 4 of them out there for the United States. This one seems to have an energetic component that the other charts don't. I don't know how you feel about that, Dabney.
I mean, this chart absolutely resonates with me as the US chart. So this
Okay,
is the one that
yeah.
I always look to. And as somebody with several planets in Cancer in the seventh house and Sagittarius rising, I am an American girl through and through. And so I really resonate with this chart.
Okay, okay. Okay, so yeah, we've got that Aries that I mentioned at the bottom of the chart, which is very warlike. You know, there are levels, of course, as you know, and as many of your subscribers know, there's levels to all the zodiacal sign energy, and there's energetic levels to all the planets. So the low level of Aries is being the bully, and and we certainly were when we came to this continent, and warlike and bloodthirsty, and but the higher vibration of Aries is the knight in shining armor. And, not that might makes right, it's that right makes right. We've got this Arthurian kind of energy at the bottom of our chart. So where we're looking out to right the wrongs and help the ones that are helpless. Um, so that's the highest, I think, of the United States chart for the foundation of the creation of this country. And then, of course, the top is Libra, which is peace and tranquility and fairness and justice. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
and that Aries down there, there's the myth of it's not even a myth. We're pioneers. We're very independent.
yes,
All of that is Aries, and that there's a beauty in that, and there's also a danger in that because
absolutely.
I think we've all sort of seen, having been lived through a pandemic in recent years, and that our go it alone, individuality, um, independence, all of those things are very Aryan. That has served the US so well in the sense that there is a degree of bravery, there is a degree of pioneering spirit, there's a degree of um, going where no one else
Yeah, that's
dares to
everything.
go,
Hmm.
being a leader. These things are in our DNA, but also in our DNA is a little bit of that, like if we don't have that community sense that they have in like Japan or some of the other cultures
Hmm.
where they're raised to think about, well, what does my impact have to do with family and everyone else around us? We are raised in a very survival of the fittest.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people come here from other countries that I've spoken with and they're like, it's just so hard to survive here. And that is not what they thought would happen,
Hmm.
but that is it. And so we're taught from a very early age to look out for number one, look out for yourself because no one else will.
No one else will, right?
And that's very Aries. And as right now in the sky, both Neptune and Saturn are sitting at the bottom of the US chart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're having a bit of a reckoning here in the US
Mhm.
because it's about how do we survive when we only look out for number one? And is that really sustainable? It's kind of like we're perennial teenagers out there, just sort of on the world stage, like,
Cruising through, yeah.
now you're right. But, we're inventors and we do all this cool stuff. But
Mhm.
then we've also been seen as a beacon of justice
Mhm.
and democracy. That's, the reputation we have may not always line up with the reality. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that we're starting to see. Would you agree, Karin?
I would totally agree. And I think that Neptune and Saturn at the bottom of the chart now, that when they finally have moved out of Pisces, which means the end of a huge cycle and the beginning of a new one. And one of the things that the United States is trying to do with this new cycle is, I think we're having an identity crisis.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out who we really are and who we really aren't.
Right. It's almost, and that's kind of, it's opposing that Libra out in the world.
Mhm.
So all of the immigrants that have come here for security and for justice and, believing that we are this beacon on the hill of where, give the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty is 100% Libra on the midheaven.
Yep,
And and yet the guy driving the Uber tells me I don't know how I can survive any longer, because
right.
it's too brutal. And, and so as, like you said, that's such a great observation because, all these executive orders, everything that's happening now, how do we reconcile our reputation with our need to take care of ourselves?
Mhm.
And where things have been out of balance, how do we get them back in balance? How do we remain um, an inspiration to other people,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
also recognize the truth of not providing health care for the people that live here, that people struggle to survive and have a working wage, right?
exactly. Healthcare, clean water, clean air, clean food. These are things that other countries take for granted, and the corporations that have gotten into power are like, no, we're going to make you pay for those things. And if you can't afford it, well, too bad.
And
Tough.
there's the Chiron in the fourth,
Mm-hmm.
which is the wound, and the wound is the violence. The
Yeah.
wound is
From day one. Yeah.
right. It's indigenous people, it's slavery, it's that battle within,
Mm-hmm.
or identity of, autonomy. Who am I? I am here and I want to survive. This is, the people that landed here prior to this chart
Mm-hmm.
that made their way,
Exactly.
they were seeking to to pursue their own religion. That, that was
Right.
part of their big thing, was like they wanted to have freedom. And Aries
Right.
is all about freedom. So freedom
All
is
about
built
freedom
into
and
our
independence.
DNA.
Absolutely. Don't tell me what to do.
Right. Like
Don't
I
put your
wanted
rules
to,
on me.
don't put your rules on me. I love it. Yeah. So we definitely have issues with authority. So,
Mhm.
um,
But it's so interesting, Dabney, that, and I'm sure you've noticed this, that the United States North Node, which is our highest spiritual good, is in the eighth house in Leo.
yep.
So the eighth house is other people's values. How can we incorporate other people's values, which are all the immigrants that have come here for years and years and years, decades and decades from all over the world. How can we incorporate what's important to their family and their family and their family, their food, their culture, their religion? That's our highest spiritual good, is how to do that and do it in a Leo kind of way where it's joyful, it's creative. It's leading the world. Look at how we're doing it. We're doing a great job. We're happy that we have all these wonderful different groups of people here, different colors, different cultures, different religions, and everybody gets along, and everybody it enhances the total group of the country to have all these different people here. That's our highest good. can run, but we can't hide. That's what we're supposed to be trying to do.
So as a Cancer nation, so the Sun, the Jupiter, and the Venus are all in Cancer in the seventh house.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have this signature of someone that wants to take care of other people, that
Mm-hmm.
wants to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is, and we have, we look at what just got cut and with USAID, right? We have provided sustenance and food for people all around the country, or
Mm-hmm.
all around the world, I should say. And that's very Cancerian, and we have
Absolutely.
these relationships that are very strong. And so that is part of that sort of identity crisis. And then also, so the seventh house is close relationships, but here we have Mars and Gemini, which
Mm-hmm.
is like, and Cancer can be nationalistic. Cancer
Very so, very
can
much so.
be isolationist.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help you, but as long as it doesn't hurt me, I need to like protect my,
Yeah, and
and there's,
Cancer often has strings attached when they do things for you, and you
yep.
don't know about those strings until you forget something, and then they're like, "Well, how could you? How could you? I did all this for you." So, and we've seen
Very
that.
true. I'm a Cancer.
Really?
It's very true. I don't mean it, but that is the Cancer shadow, is we hold a
Yeah.
grudge, and yes,
What's in it for me?
what's in it for me? And so here's the Mars though too, and Mars is aggression and Gemini is
Mhm.
unpredictable. We are a
Mhm.
somewhat unpredictable partner. We are
Yeah.
somebody that can be jerks. So like
Yeah.
on one hand, we're going to feed you. On the other hand, we might bomb you.
Yeah.
And you don't know which side you're going to get some days.
Right.
So that's the Mars there. And here's the Sagittarius rising. There's the loud Americans,
Right.
loud, opinionated Americans. Um, but we have a very strong belief system. And again, here, the moon. Look at that moon in Aquarius in the third house.
Yeah.
We're inventive. Again, we're pioneering. We're brilliant. We do things no
Brilliant.
one else
Moon in
will do.
Aquarius is the problem solver.
Right.
They're completely the best people to go to when you've got the biggest, most tangled up problem is find a moon in Aquarius and dump it in their lap.
Yeah, we're inventive and we move things forward, and we have all of the technology that came from here over the past century. And so, and also that moon in Aquarius too does want to take care of other people. So this is but it's doing it from a very detached, dispersonal way.
Mhm.
So again, there's a little schizophrenia in this
Yeah.
chart.
Yes, there's schizophrenia, there's a little paranoia there. Yeah. Yeah.
So when I look at the North Node, I can't help but look at the South Node, which
Mhm.
has Pluto really close to it. So Pluto in the second house, money, resources. We are a very wealthy nation, and we received that wealth through potentially sometimes ill-gotten gains. And that's that Pluto and Capricorn in the second house. The positive sign of it is like we really focus on money. Money and power are super important in this country.
Yeah.
And having that second house Aquarius South Node, we have to get out of the pioneering state. So, we have to kind of not be so isolationist. We actually have to recognize our responsibility and power to others, and what having lots of resources, if you have all these resources, how can you be a very good leader? How can you be a
Right.
compassionate leader? How
Right.
can you be a good partner? This is the United States. We were talking about soul purpose. Our purpose in this lifetime, the United States, when this chart was created until we have a new constitution, this is our chart,
Mhm.
is about being a leader that doesn't shy away from the hard truths, that will go deep to solve really challenging problems and protect other people, and do it with nurturance and caring and kindness and relationships. So
Mhm.
that is our highest good. When we
Mhm.
are off track, we are someone you can't count on to, we're unpredictable, is what I would say.
Right. Right.
We focus far too much on money, and we can be detached from, we're interested in the greater good as long as the greater good serves us.
Yeah, as long as it serves us. And the only thing I would add to that excellent analysis would be that Pluto is ruling the 12th house in the United States chart. So it's, the house of self-undoing, um, or self-liberation, that that greed of Pluto in the second,
Yeah.
next to the south node, that greed is our undoing, and we can turn it around and say, look, this is the thing that really kills me when I talk to friends over the last few years, about friends that are Republicans. Is like they're completely convinced that we don't have enough. We don't have enough of anything, not money, not resources, to help the people that need to be helped. We don't have enough. And I'm like, we're the richest nation on the planet. What do you mean we don't have enough? They're totally convinced we don't have enough. And I think that's part of the Pluto in the 12th house, ruling the 12th house, is that, there's this feeling of, I can't let go to give, because then I'm out of it. I won't
And
have
that
enough
is
for
so
me.
second house south node too, because it's about trauma. I mean, the people who came to this nation, whether they chose to come to this nation or they were brought here against their will,
Mm-hmm.
there is a severe underlying trauma about being a stranger in a strange land,
Mm-hmm.
not belonging. That is
Right.
Aquarius in the second house, is this sense of lack. The
Yeah.
Aquarius in the second house is like, if I don't, it's survivalism.
It's survivalism,
It's
right?
being shunned, it's being kicked out of your native country, whatever, whether it was the pilgrims or whether it was the slaves. It's people that came to this country because they were no longer of their other country. So they were no longer, so it's kind of this, like, again, this independence, but there's a trauma. It's a
Right.
real
There's
strong,
a refugee.
right? It's a
Yeah.
refuge. And so there is this always like a sense of feeling like it's never enough. And that is
Yeah.
such a good, that is because you didn't have enough in a past life, right?
Right.
Because your history. So if I was doing, a person's reading, that would definitely be up for me, because I would say the Aquarian shadow is somebody who was cast out of the group. They didn't belong.
Right.
They were misfits.
Right.
They
Mm-hmm.
were, they were shunned, and it caused a survival issue. And so there is this kind of, and you think about, like, my family came over during the Irish famines, right?
Oh,
So a
wow.
lot of people came here from other countries out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And so then to survive, here's this area.
Right. It was a life or death situation. Yeah.
Right. And then we said, give us your huddled masses, which is all this Cancer and the Libra and the midheaven.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have been with Pluto, the Pluto return. Now Pluto, in the next few years coming to our south node,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be a real reckoning of, okay, we have to heal this. We have to heal this, because what we're supposed to be is powerful leaders, and we're supposed to have resources and be leaders to take care of other people with kindness and
Mm-hmm.
compassion and nurturing.
Right. Right.
And we are workaholics. There's another
Yeah.
workaholic. So anytime you have Saturn in the 10th, just like Saturn in the first,
Mm-hmm.
that we're a nation of people that have worked really, really hard. And sometimes we can be somewhat delusional about our belief systems.
Oh,
And
yeah.
really, really caught up in religious dogma and
Yeah.
not see things clearly.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Karen, I was just blabbing.
No, that's,
I just get
I'm
going, I
enjoying
can't
listening to
stop.
you so much. And I think, just to go back to the Neptune in the ninth, with the Neptune that we've had in Pisces the past 8 years, and we've seen Neptunian things get completely out of hand.
Mm.
Conspiracy theories and the opioid crisis and cheating in elections and getting away with things. It's just Neptune opposed Neptune. Definitely very, very destructive, very, very insidious.
Yeah, it's so incredible. So thank you for riffing on the USA chart with me. It is so incredible what you can see in a chart
Mhm.
that, again, so this just gives you sort of an idea of the roadmap. So it's like when you're off track, like, oh, when you are going down a rabbit hole of investigating religious conspiracies or government conspiracies, that's,
Mhm.
Neptune in the ninth house in Virgo. But
Right.
the high side of that is being, the spiritual
Inspired.
explorer, being
Yeah.
accepting of other people's beliefs, right? And exactly, just very inspirational and international. And so
Yeah.
there's just there's so much there. So much
Yeah.
there. So very cool. Well, yeah, so if you are interested in getting a reading from Karin, please do go check out her chart readings. Anything that you want to say about your website or your YouTube channel?
It's a baby YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow it. So I'm really excited to get some new people. I got some new people. I was on Hogarth's show a couple weeks ago, and I got some new subscribers. So I'm really looking forward to some new people. Thank you so much for helping to promote that. And I absolutely adore doing readings. I've been doing them for over 30 years. I could tell you the exact number, but I'd be telling you how old I am, and I'm not ready to do that yet. So, but I have been doing it for a long time. I've had some just incredibly superlative teachers. I'm so grateful, and that I had that wonderful springboard. And you did too. Steven Forrest is an incredible person to learn from. So yeah, I'm really honored to be on your show, Dabney. I've been
Aw.
watching it and enjoying it, and I generally don't watch anything that's more than, unless it's Susan, I generally don't watch anything that's more than like a half an hour long. But I'll start watching one of your shows, and I'm watching to the very end because
Aw.
the people you have on are fascinating. You're fascinating, so I'm very grateful to be on today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. I'm really grateful that you're here. And the whole Susan family to me is we're all very blessed. And
Yes.
so check out Little Blue Lotus Astrology. I will link it below. So, go subscribe to her channel. And she does do some political stuff. Are you doing political stuff on your channel?
I'm starting to do a little bit more political stuff. What I'm trying to do on the channel is make some sense of what the planets are doing for people, how this might be affecting them personally. And then I throw in some public stuff about, what might be happening in the outside world.
Yeah.
I just did a video about the Pope, the new
Right. And
Pope.
so
Yeah.
that's what's so amazing is we're all trying to get information and understand all this crazy
Mhm.
energy. And I don't think the craziness is subsiding anytime soon. So we are
Yeah.
all in it together.
Yeah.
And as always, there's a reason and a season for it all. The universe is conspiring to help us. And if you are
Yes.
looking for your soul purpose, definitely check out any kind of astrology reading. Find the person that resonates for you, and it can unlock so many doors. Okay, until next time.